This room, I'm a Detroit kid, so I really did grow up in this room. From what I remember, it was a great time, always. But shout out to Blue for still standing the test of time to be here still. I mean, it's a great... The story I'm about to tell is, Jeannie, my wife and I's dear friend and mentor, she kind of got this out of me. This happened 13 years ago, and I don't think I've talked about it since. So, I grew up in the restaurant business on the west side of Detroit on Schaefer and Finkel, and then my parents later moved out to Farmington Hills, and they bought a lot of land with, it was a former apple orchard. And they bought all this land because they wanted to farm the land. So the gardens and all that, this is in the 70s. So we went out there, I was a young kid, child labor laws were not valid in my home, so they had us working at a very young age. So I went through the business, kind of despising it because my parents made me work. And in 1993, my father passed away. And he was a master gardener, chef, entrepreneur. And I was at Michigan State, and my mother was watching my father, so the business kind of lost its luster. The reputation was going down. So I decided in 95 to join my mother in the business. And I set out for a mission of what we thought would be one of the greatest restaurants experience, but at the same time creating an environment that everyone can grow from. 3 years since our reputation kind of fell, we were on the up and up, and I remember the phones were ringing, the garden, think of this, July. The garden was about to be harvested, the phones are ringing, the patios are packed, everybody's there. We get a young lady that walks in the back door, and she comes to us and she says, "I'm your new health inspector." I said, "How are you? Nice to meet you." And she says, "Stay out of my way. I'm doing my thing. I don't want to talk." So I said, "Whoa, you're having a bad day? Okay, do your thing." So as I'm watching her, she's going around. She's writing a hole in the screen door, something with the 3-compartment, things that are more mechanical than anything. So I said, "Okay, keep your cool, whatever. We've been here a long time. Do your thing. You're new." So she comes in the office afterwards. She goes, "Please come outside, and I want to show you the garden." She goes, "You get rid of that garden tonight, or we're closing you down." We said, "We've been gardening since the 70s. How can you tell us this?" And she says, you do it now, or I close you tomorrow." So sure enough, we listened to her. We didn't make any calls. We tear out the garden, which you got to think of the garden is the labor of love. It's what my father started. He had passed away. It's something that people came to Cafe Cortina for, and we did it. We tore it out, and we tore everything out, all the labor and the love and what we've invested in this garden for years and years. So the next day, we're sitting in the office. We're like, "Wow, that was really kind of crazy that we just tore out the garden. That was what we're known for." We hear a knock on the door. Board of Health, she peeks her head in. She goes, "Excuse me, I made a mistake yesterday. You can have the garden." It was like The Exorcist. I don't know what came over us, but we stood up. Troia, puttana in Italian. Tore, sluts, everything like The Exorcist other than projectile vomiting. I mean, it was crazy. I don't know what, I don't use foul language, but it just came over us like, I don't even know. So she walked out, she turned all white, she walks out, and she just leaves. She pretty much runs out the back door. So a couple days go by, and a client comes in and says, Channel 4's outside, they're taking a picture of the sign. So I was like, "Oh, we're used to the media coming by, this, that." So next thing you know, we didn't think anything of it. And then we started getting phone calls. The phone started ringing off the hook. And people are canceling their parties and their events that are coming up, their weddings, everything, all of the events. We're like, what the heck is going on here? So someone says, "Turn on the TV." So we turn on the TV, and sure enough, you see Detroit's dirtiest dozen. So the dirtiest restaurants in Detroit. So the news station really didn't do their due diligence. They didn't realize that nothing was food related. It was more of a hole in the screen door, little simple things. So this woman vindictively went and she put our name in there. And for some sort of sensationalism, the news did, they took a picture of a Coney Island walk-in cooler that was in disarray and then panned to our sign. So we were devastated. Obviously, we were devastated. We didn't know what to do. You know the saying, 100 years to build it, in 2 days to knock it down. This was living this story. The family was hurt, my mother and I. But what we did is we rolled up our sleeves, and we had a lot of friends in the media that said, "This is not true. It's simply not true." And we went and we just worked harder. And the moral of the story is to turn a negative into a positive. Keep your composure, keep moving forward, and 38 years later, we are still standing, never resting on laurels, but still standing. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.